Hi everyone, today let's talk about protocol. First, let's take a look at how does an ice cream transaction get done. In comment, the buyer will ask the first question firstly, how much is an ice cream? Yeah. In the second step, the seller will tell a buyer the price and acceptable payment methods. Then the buyer will tell the seller the quantity and the payment method of the purchase. And last, the transaction is successfully completed. So can learn the negotiation process of buying ice cream is one kind of protocol. Then let me check what are the important features of the negotiation of the protocol. In this deal, at the second step, the seller tells the buyer that the price is €5 for each. The buyer will think the boss is crazy. This is Canada. Why do you use euros? This is seller using the wrong format to negotiate. The deal will eventually fail. In this transaction, at the first step, the buyer directly asks, "How do you make ice cream?" The seller thinks to himself, "This person is crazy, trying to steal my secrets." So the transaction will also fail. The correct procedures: the buyer should ask for the price at the first step and not the recipe. So negotiation is related to two important things: format and procedures. Both parties of a transaction will contribute to the success of a deal if they comply with a specific format and some procedures. In the computer science field, communication equals a transaction or deal. Format will require both parties communicating to send a message in a specific layout. For example, the first 16 bytes should be your username, and the next 16 bytes should be your organization's name. Procedures ask the client what type of message to send in the first step, and the server what type of message to reply in the second step. And format and procedures contain tons of rules. The communication will only work if both parties comply with the specific format and procedures. To sum up, a protocol is a set of rules for format and procedures that govern the exchange of information or communication between device or system. Next, I will talk about some protocols in the computer science field. Some common protocols are Internet protocols and cryptography protocols. In the TCP/IP protocol stack, we classify them according to layers. Here we use the 4-layer model, for example. In the link layer, ARP is very common. In the internet layer, the most famous one is the IP protocol. Remember that in the header of the IP packet, there is only the IP address without port information. And in the routing process of an IP packet, only the IP address is needed. And besides, the NAT function requires a combination of IP and port. Port IP address. NAT. Yeah. Let me continue. in the transport layer, we often hear about TCP and UDP, both of which come with port information. In fact, the port is just a logic concept. When you open the port on your computer and listen on it, there will not be a real physical port to be opened. It will just create a socket, including IP and port, in the kernel. And when the network card receives some information or some data to the corresponding socket, it will forward these packets to the binding program. Then you can process them. In the application layer, there are HTTP, FTP, POP3, and SMTP, and some other protocols. There is another protocol we didn't mention here, which is TLS. Okay. I think this protocol is based on TCP, and it is the foundation of HTTPS. Let's use the pen. HTTPS. Okay. I only can use the 7-layer model to explain it because it is between the application layer and the transport layer. Between them. In cryptography, the common one is Diffie-Hellman key exchange protocols, and there are many other protocols in PKI system, the public key infrastructure. Okay, I once wrote a program to. Sorry, I use a pen. I once wrote some program to receive emails when I was in college. Client. Server. Okay. This program is based on POP3 protocol, which is based on TCP, and the default port number is 110. The protocol is very simple. The first couple of steps are for the authentication. We need to send user the command user followed by my username as the first command. I will send user and followed by your real username, my enterprise, to server. I think the server will return OK if the user is available. Okay. Next step, we need to send the pass. The pass is a command followed by your real password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to server. If the password is correct, the server will reply with OK. And if your password is wrong, then server will reply with error. Okay. And then if we change the first command to name, change the keyword user, the command user to name Bryce. Under this condition, sorry. Under this condition, we use the wrong format. So the server will reply narrow. Okay. If we don't follow the correct procedure, we send the least command as the first message. The server will still return error. Okay. List. And this is because we need to authenticate first before we can browse the mailing list. Okay, this is a small example. Now let me bring up another example in details. The transmission control protocol (TCP) is a bit more complicated than the POP3 protocol I mentioned in the last slide. Let's take a look at the figure, which shows the format of TCP format. This is the format that every TCP needs to follow. We can say, let's draw a red line. Okay, this red line is slipped for the header and body. Oh, okay. The top of the red line is the header, and the bottom is data. Okay, we can also call it body. My God. Okay, also call it body. Okay. In the header, the first 6 bits of the header should be source port, the sender's port, and the next 6 bits are the destination port, the receiver's port. I'd like to interject a question here. What is the difference between a byte and a bit? There was big event recently, the TikTok hearing. You know, the parent company of TikTok is ByteDance, not BitDance. The difference between them is very simple, but I think I might need to rehash that. 1 byte is 8 bits. Yeah, a bit is the smallest unit in the binary system, and 1 bit can. Okay. 1 bit can represent 2 cans of information, 0 and 1 bit. 0 and 1, because it is useful in the binary system, binary 0 1, just 2. The units of data described in this diagram are all bits, not byte. Okay, I will have a separate video about byte and bit. Okay, let's go back to the topic. Next page. TCP, after having a format, then comes to the communication procedures. TCP's famous process of establishing a connection is three-way handshake. A little common sense. In general, the party that actively sends the connection request, we call it client. And the party that passively receives it, we call it server. So client will send a packet with the SYN flag set to 1 to establish a connection. We won't talk about the follow-up process. It's because it's not the focus of the video, and there are many videos and articles about the three-way handshake. In fact, after the connection is established successfully, there are many procedures to regulate to regulate the communications following up, such as how to set the sequence number and the window size, and how to handle packet loss if it occurs. Well, by now, we should have a clear idea of what protocol is. A protocol is a set of rules for our format and procedures that govern the exchange of information or communication between device or system. I hope it will help you understand it. Okay, then I will talk about how to get some details or documents of some common internet protocols later. So keep watching if you are interested. How to search protocols? Yes, when speaking on this topic, we have to mention RFC. Many internet protocols standards exist in the form of RFC, request of commands. We can find the products you need on rfc-editor.org. Okay, you see, we can find these documents in this website. And we can type the keyword like TCP and click search. Oh, there are many search results. So we can see here is the complete name of TCP Transmission Control Protocol. We should check if this one is the newest one. It's not the latest one because it has been obsolete by RFC line 2 line 3, so we can check this one. Oh, we can choose the HTML format. So we can see we can find many details in this document, like the header format. Yeah, this is the format I use it in my slides. And we can find the sequence number, how to set the sequence number, and acknowledgement number maybe here, and how to establish a connection, three-way handshake here, and how to close a connection here. So there are many details in this document. And if you want some documents or videos with less details, you can search the topic on YouTube. Okay, this is all for this video. See you everyone.